بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we're going to continue here. Some common sources of power struggles. One emerges from the passive-aggressive pattern of relating. So the nag and ignore game. So the nagger is trying to assert power by constantly mentioning something. And the one that ignores is trying to exert power through ignoring. But it results in a struggle because each one is using a particular technique, either nagging or ignoring, to exert power. So when you find yourself nagging, just try to leave it and try another approach to make your point. And if you're intentionally ignoring someone, to elicit a result that is a manifestation of your effort to exert power over them. If I ignore them, they'll shut up. That's an effort to exert power. As opposed to, let me try to get them to address me in a different manner so we could find out what's wrong and address the issue. So this is one way that's very common. Another huge issue in terms of power struggle is the fear of leaving ourselves vulnerable, a fear of exposing our vulnerabilities. And as a result, we exert ourselves to compensate for that fear. All of us have vulnerabilities, and there's a natural tendency to defend ourselves in ways that will not allow those vulnerabilities to be known in some instances, or to be exploited in other instances. And really overcoming that is a communal effort. So we have to collectively work. And this is where the power of Islam really manifests itself, or should manifest itself. We have to work as a community to create an environment where we feel safe. And again, this is rooted in our fundamental Islamic teachings. Al-Muslim, man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadih. The Muslim is the one from whom other Muslims are safe from their tongue and their hand. So in other words, all of us should be contributing to an environment where we feel safe. I can expose my vulnerabilities. I don't have to engage in this exaggerated defense of myself, because I know my brothers and sisters, whether in the context of a marriage, of a friendship, or just associations and acquaintances, are not going to exploit my weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Therefore, there's no need for me to engage in these defensive power struggles. So those are two things that are very, very common. All right, what should we do in light of the situation we find ourselves in, the power struggles we sometimes find ourselves engaged in? What is to be done? First thing is to implement our religious teachings about humility. So if we're humble, we're not trying to impose ourselves on people. About selflessness. If we've taken the ego out of the equation, then again, there's no need for ourselves to aggrandize ourselves at the expense of others, because that self has been placed in its proper place by giving preference to others. Again, I don't have to overpower you. If you want it that bad, take it. It's really not that important. What's important is Jannah. It's paradise. So it's a non-essential issue. Let's do it your way. You spend the money to get a new pair of shoes. I'll forego whatever I wanted to spend the money for. That's give preference to others. That's a part of our religion, where we're not compromising fundamental teachings of the religion, and fulfilling the rights of others. One of the greatest fruits of one's spiritual maturation is being able to exert yourself assiduously for the fulfillment of the rights of others, and to be very relaxed in terms of having your rights fulfilled by others. So if I owe you $100, I'm not going to eat next week to make sure I'm going to pay you back. But if you owe me $100 and I don't need it, then I'm not even going to ask you for it. If you give it to me, good. If you don't, mashallah. And that's a fruit of spiritual maturation. That sort of attitude, when it's present in relationships, it makes it very easy for us to relate to others. If we're humble, if we're selfless, if we give preference to others, if we work assiduously to fulfill the rights of others while being very lenient in terms of the rights that others owe to us. So these are some things we should really strive to do. Pay attention in the context of marriage. Outside of marriage, substitute spouse with friend. Pay attention to your spouse when he or she wants to discuss something serious. We know when the issue is serious. When the issue is serious, we can tell by the tone of voice. We can tell by the nature of the situation. There are many indicators that let us know when someone seriously wants to talk. And when those instances come, it is incumbent upon us to pay attention. As good adab, it's a fadila. It's a virtue to pay attention when someone wants to talk to us about anything in any situation. As it was mentioned yesterday, when the Prophet ﷺ addressed someone, he turned his whole face and body towards them. He displayed attentiveness and alertness. He made them feel there was no one else in the room. If the room were filled with people and everyone in the room felt the same way. Oh, mashallah, alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum. Everyone felt that way. That's a fadila, that's a virtue. In this situation, when there's something serious to be discussed, it is a farida, it is a binding obligation. So we should make sure that we pay attention when someone is trying to really seriously discuss something with us. We should empathize with our spouse, parents, and children, if we do that, or friends in that case, or whatever the case may be. When we can empathize, it makes us understand what the other person is experiencing. And that makes it easier for us to back up and not try to impose our will on them. So if we understand the struggle that our wives are going through, for example, and the sacrifices they're making in many instances, because this is a society that emphasizes equality. It is a society that minimizes distinctions in gender roles. And most of our spouses have grown, wives in this case, have grown up in that environment. In many instances, though, they say, I'll put my education on the back burner, and I'll stay home, and I'll try to raise the child. And understanding that, and understanding those sacrifices, makes it easier to respect our spouses, our wives, and to back up and say, look, she's given up enough. She doesn't need to just give up everything. So from A to Z, I'm going to let her know I'm the man, I wear the pants and everything. You're submissive, subordinate, and that's how it is. This is Islam, takbir, Allahu Akbar. Oh, we're human beings. And we have to treat each other with a huge portion of basic human dignity. And that involves empathy with our parents, with our children. To understand, is a lot of parents, the children do things that are very American teenager-ish. Is that a real word? I just made it one. And they do it. They'll do things very American teenagerish. And as a result, they get screamed at and yelled at, and their lives are threatened. And sometimes parents have to empathize and realize it is extremely difficult being a teenager in America. It's hard, parents. There are pressures that a person who grew up in a more traditional society, because things are breaking down in the Muslim world, and a lot of the problems and dysfunctions that are here are moving over there, thanks primarily to television. But it is not easy, and there are unimaginable pressures. There are unimaginable influences, and a lot of them are very subtle. Even when I was growing up, advertisement hadn't been perfected. So I could easily be a social rebel, sometimes without a cause, as a teenager. Yes? All right, here, these techniques are used to control. And the conscious effort is to control. Here, when we mention those things, these things are used to create an environment where the focus is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we mentioned earlier, by way of introduction, وَمَا تَوَاضَعَ أَحَدٌ لِلَّهِ. So no one humbles themselves for Allah. So here, we're doing it for our nafs. And that creates its own dynamics in terms of the outcome. Here we're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that creates its own dynamics. So that's the basic difference between it. Right. So, and just to reiterate the answer very quickly, in the first instance, these ways of functioning, passive-aggressive, are motivated by the nafs, whereas those similar type behaviors that involve some of these things are motivated by a desire to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. مَا تَوَاضَعَ, no one humbles themselves, لِلَّهِ إِلَّا رَفْعَهُ اللَّهُ, which creates a different dynamic in terms of the outcome. Here the outcome emanates from a dynamic that's situated in the nafs. And here the dynamic emanates from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because one who does something for their nafs, they're left to their own devices in terms of the outcome. One who does something for Allah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes charge of the outcome. And so, and here the outcome is not likely to be negative. Here, for Allah's sake, there's humility, there's selflessness, there's giving preference. The outcome will be positive. So we mentioned empathizing with spouses, parents, children, validating each other's feelings. So for example, as opposed to this, husband comes home, obviously upset. Why are you taking out that stuff that happens on the job on me? As opposed to, they denied you the promotion because you're a Muslim, you should be upset. Here we're validating. So what's going to be the response? Oh, shucks. I'm so glad I got a wife like you. What's going to be the right result here? Why are you taking all that stuff that happens on the job on me? It's going to be negative. So a lot of times, how we validate or invalidate the way our friend, our spouse, neighbor, someone we have a relationship is feeling will affect the future course of that relationship, either the immediate future or the distant future. We have to show genuine affection. Showing genuine affection goes a long way towards diffusing power struggles. Because when you feel someone cares about you, you tend not to try to impose yourself on them or to dominate them. So showing genuine affection is very important in this regard. To show support, this is especially important in dealing with third parties. So supporting your friend's position when they're right and aligning yourself with them when they're right helps to prevent isolation and insecurity. As we mentioned yesterday, insecurity is one of the greatest sources of a desire to exert power. It's insecurity. Insecurity is one of the greatest sources of criminal behavior. If you know or are familiar with the general population of incarcerated individuals, a large percentage, if you examine, had trouble in early school years, either with reading or some academic thing, and developed insecurities and acted out as a result. And that led to special education, that led to leaving school altogether, that led to the truth, to the streets, to the gangs, and in many instances to trying to assert power and to ascribe meaning to self through non-academic processes. You'll find that in a lot of instances. And so it's rooted in insecurity. So it's very important that we make each other secure. Muslims, that we make each other secure, that we make people around us secure, so that people don't look at us as a source of insecurity, as some do now. You get on a plane, people start looking at you and getting insecure. You know, does he have a suicide belt? Why does he have such a baggy shirt? What's up under there? You know, al-Muslim man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadih. The Muslim is the one, all of the other Muslims are safe from their tongue and hand. Wal-mu'min man amina an-nasu bawa'iqa. And the believer, wal-mu'min, is one that all of the people are safe from any evil from them. وَالْمُؤْمِنْ مَنْ أَمِنَ النَّاسُ بَوَائِقًا. So we should work hard to make people secure. We should work hard to remove insecurities, and that effort should start with those closest to us. Charity begins at home, as they say, because insecurity leads to efforts to assert power in any relationship. الراحمون يرحمهم الرحمن ارحموا من في الأرض يرحمكم من في السماء. So the merciful people are those the all-merciful will show mercy to. Be merciful to those on earth, and Allah will be merciful to you. So again, many times efforts to assert power lead us to trample on people, lead us to disregard the rights and feelings of other people, lead us to engage in behaviors that are not empowering to the other. Muslims, we should be merciful. And if we're merciful, Allah Ta'ala will be merciful to us. We should never forget that. Mercy is the dominant characteristic Allah manifests in His creation. And mercy should be a characteristic that defines all of us, whoever we are. And if we're merciful, then we'll all help each other to blossom, to be the person we're supposed to be. So, if you go to the workbook very quickly, moving right along here, let's go to power. And this again, consider your baggage. Then we'll go through the balance, imbalance sheet together. So just take a look at these 5 things and think about how it might affect your current relationship, and then think about how you might change some of these things if you're coming down on the negative side of the ledger. So the first things, the baggage, just think about that. The second thing, let's go through this together, the balance or imbalance sheet. So check off as we go. Below is a list of common family decisions. In your family of origin, were these issues decided by your father, mother, or both? Who had the final word in arguments? So number 1, check off. Decisions about how to spend money. So check father, mother, or both. Right? Number 2, decisions about whom to visit or socialize with. Who made those decisions? The father, the mother, or both of the parents? Decisions about where to live. Child rearing. So child rearing to school. What school the children are going to go to, what kind of clothes they're going to wear, what kind of friends they have. That's related to number 2. But basic child rearing decisions. Who made those decisions? Father, mother, or both? Decisions about where to live. Who made those decisions? Father, mother, or both? And finally, decisions about where to spend vacations. Father, mother, or both. So by way of assessment, if you have a lopsided list, if you have both, you probably have a very balanced approach to these decisions in your relationships, especially if you're married. If you have mother, 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 or father, 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 you have a lopsided list, and that probably affects the way that as a man or a woman you now relate with your spouse in terms of making very important decisions. So if you have some notes or question you might want to discuss this afternoon, you can write that down. All right, we have one other thing, most common control techniques. So these are the 4 most common. Control by compliance. You go along with what your spouse wants, saying you want to avoid conflict. In reality, however, you use constant acquiescence to feel like you control your spouse, because you know that elicits a certain response. And again, this emanates from your nafs. Control by instilling guilt or fear. You make threats to leave or withdraw financial support. You give your partner the silent treatment or use tears, blame, or sarcasm to make your points. You complain or use illness to get your way. Not healthy at all. Control by indifference. You shut your spouse out in various ways, again by way of control. Control by indecision. You refuse to state how you really feel or what you want, thus forcing your spouse to make decisions for you, which again is a control technique. So reflect on who might use these or why they might use them, and then how these behaviors conform to Islamic ideals. Not Islamic norms. Muslims do these things, as we all know. But what are the ideals of Islam? The most important is we do things to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we do things to help each other, to bring their behavior respectively into conformance with those standards established by Allah. So help your brother whether he or she is an oppressor or oppressed. So we know how to help him, O Messenger of Allah, if he's oppressed. How do we help him if he's an oppressor? So by going and knocking him off? No, by helping him to cease his oppression. Because the objective is not having oppression. يا عبادي إني حرمت الظلم على نفسي وجعلته بينكم محرما فلا تظالموا. So my servants, I made oppression forbidden for myself, and I made it forbidden amongst you. Therefore, don't oppress one another. So the objective is getting rid of oppression, not oppressing each other in an effort to get rid of oppression. So as we said, the ends do not justify the means. We want to get rid of oppression, so I'm going to oppress you, which might get rid of you altogether. Good, there won't be no more oppression. No, we want to get rid of the oppression. If we can do that and help the oppressor to become a beneficent, magnanimous person, that's all the better. That's like guiding people. We don't want to get rid of kufr by getting rid of all the kafirs. You with me? We don't want to get rid of kufr by getting rid of all the kafirs. That's not the way of the Prophet ﷺ. If it were, we wouldn't read about Amr bin al-As being a companion. We wouldn't read about Hind being a companion. We wouldn't read about Abu Sufyan being a companion. We wouldn't read about Khalid bin al-Walid being a companion. Sayfullah al-Maslul, the unsheathed sword of Allah. Because why? They were all oppressors. They were all kafirs. They fought the Prophet ﷺ. They killed his companions. They chewed on Hamza's liver, one of them, Hind, right? So, but the objective wasn't to get rid of the kafirs. If it was, Fathi Mecca would have been one of the most bloody days in history. When a 10,000 strong Muslim army descended on Mecca. And the kuffar, the non-believers, disbelievers were totally at the mercy of the Muslims. And now we will purify this land of kufr once and for all. Get the swords out. Bismillah. لا تثريب عليكم اليوم أنتم طلقاء. There's no blame on you today. You're free. Go about your business. Because the objective is to get people to believe and not to get rid of people. And lo and behold, what happened? They all believed in very short order. That's what it's all about. There's a lot of room in paradise. So we don't have to keep anybody out. We should try to get as many people in as possible. Because there's a lot of room in paradise. Okay, moving right along here, being money smart. A lot of our problems are rooted in, as we mentioned yesterday, not lack of money, but mismanaging money. So again, we should be very judicious and have a very healthy view of money. First of all, by understanding, money is just one of the things of this world. It's nothing to die for, and it's nothing to kill for. المال والبنون زينة الحياة الدنيا والباقيات الصالحات خير عند ربك ثوابا وخير أملا. That wealth and children are the adornments of this worldly life. The lasting reward from the good deeds that you do, that is best with your Lord as a reward, and that's the best thing to hope for. So, how many Benjamins we have in the bank isn't going to benefit us Yawm al-Qiyamah. How we used those Benjamins, that's what's going to be of benefit. How did we use our money? Did we use it to earn thawab for ourselves? That's what's important. Understanding that, again, this material world. So sometimes we think happiness is going to come if I have a bigger house, a bigger car, fancier clothes, and the whole gamut of things. That doesn't bring happiness. And why doesn't it bring happiness? Because it doesn't mean anything with Allah Ta'ala. لو كانت الدنيا تعدل عند الله جناح بعوضة ما سقى كافرا منها شربة ماء. If this world meant as much to Allah as a mosquito's wing, He wouldn't have given an arrogant rejecter of this faith a single drop of water to drink. But it doesn't mean anything to him, so He gives it freely to whomsoever He pleases. So something that means nothing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not appropriate to overwhelm our hearts. It's a belittling of our stature of a believer if we allow something that means nothing to Allah Ta'ala to mean the world to us. It's not appropriate. ازهد في الدنيا يحبك الله وازهد فيما عند الناس يحبك الناس. So divorce your heart from the world and Allah will love you, and divorce your heart from desiring the things that the people possess and the people will love you. So again, If we have wealth, it's good. We mentioned this yesterday. That's one of the people we can envy, the wealthy person who spends his or her money in the way of Allah. That's wonderful. But if we don't, mashallah, as long as we're getting by, and most will get by, Allah Ta'ala is merciful, then mashallah. The dunya should be in our hand and not in our heart. Why? Because if it's in our hand and not in our heart, if circumstances takes it out of our hand, its loss will not affect the state of our hearts. But if the dunya is in our hearts and in our hands, and circumstance takes it from our hand, it's going to affect our heart. And that's not a good thing. Now, this is just general attitude, motivation. We want to look at some specifics related to managing money. And as you look at this list of things, note that everything on this list, these are the things that usually lead to money problems in relationships, and they're all of them except one, they're all forbidden. So what are these things? Let's take a look at them. The root of money problems. The first is consumerism. Consumerism's haram. It's forbidden to waste money. Those who waste and squander, they are the brothers of Satan. They're the brothers of Satan. It's not only forbidden, it's destroying our planet. So we have to have a closet full of clothing, most of which we wear one time, and then replenish that every 3 months. As the season, oh, we have to get our new spring wardrobe. Now we have to get our summer wardrobe. Now we have to get our fall wardrobe. We have to get ready for winter. And say, but you have thick clothes. Your fall clothes are thick. I know, but they're not winter colors. And so where's all this? Where are all these resources coming from? And where's all the waste that is involved in their production and then their discarding? Where is it all going? It's all coming from the earth, and it's polluting and clogging up the earth. And we're cutting down more forests. We're cutting down more, we're using more water. We're polluting the ocean. They're becoming massive dumps and junkyards. We're poisoning the lands. And as a result, the ice caps are melting. The forests are burning down. We haven't had a blue sky here in California for almost a month. Of 1,700 wildfires. And clear why? Because there was no rain this spring. There wasn't a single drop of rain after January. So now the whole year is fire season, as opposed to a few months. And so anyway, a lot of that is how we are engaging in relating to the planet that we live on. And a lot of that goes to consumerism, that use the, you drive through old neighborhoods. When you drive through old parts, if you're from this area, old neighborhoods, you see these little houses. They're like little boxes. Whole families lived in those houses. Then drive through new neighborhoods. You see these big houses, 2 or 3 stories, and big rooms. That old little house had 1 bathroom. That new house has 3 bathrooms. And the owner demands a 3rd bathroom. I'm not moving to a house with 2.5 bathrooms. Now it's you and your husband and 2 children. I mean, how many bodies can be on a potty at one time? I mean, why, huh? There's 3. Well, I'm talking about how many times in the life of this family is everyone going to have an irrepressible urge at the same time? So we need a potty for everybody. It's insane. It is insane. I mean, how much room do you need to cook? So you got counter space to the right. counter space to the front, counter space to the left, and counter space to the rear. To cook for 4 people. I mean, it's not an army out there that's getting fed. It's ridiculous. But these become the selling points that become the justification for building, for using more resources. And why? To just make money. It's all consumerism. It's all haram, brothers and sisters. Interest, big problem, buying things on credit. Gil Scott-Heron said this before. Some of you heard it. What did Gil say? You can take part in the all-American dream. Just fill your house up with 1 million products you don't need. You don't even have to use them. Buying is all they ask of you. And if it's so doggone incredible that you don't believe it's true, it's Madison Avenue. They sell sand to a man in a desert. They sell tuna to the chicken of the sea. And a lot of it's financed by interest. Credit, it all goes together. The development of widespread credit coupled with consumerism, making these things accessible to the masses. Making these things accessible to the masses. So we can produce more and make more money with no consideration of the consequences, not only for the earth, but for the human being himself or herself. What does all of this spending do to us? If ancient man was defined by the ability to think, so I think, therefore I am, Homo sapien, we've become Homo consumerus. I spend, therefore I am. And to accommodate my spending, I use credit because I have credit cards. Homo creditus. I'm in debt, therefore I am. Unwarranted debt, which is haram. Necessary debt is one thing. Unwarranted debt is forbidden. Even necessary debt, initially the Prophet ﷺ didn't pray janazah for people in debt who died and had debts. And that's why one of the uses of zakat was for what? Well, gharimina, people in debt, to pay their debts off. And one theory, ashab al-a'raf, the people of the heights, so they don't have the sins, so they're not from the people of Jannah, of Jahannam, of hell, but they're not yet entered into paradise, so they're on the a'raf, they're on the heights. Some scholars say those are the people who die and they died in debt, and no one paid their debt. So as a result, their case is in limbo. So that's warranted debt, which is necessary, and there's Sharia justification. Unwarranted debt is haram. Don't put yourself into debt without a valid reason. But just to buy it because I wanted to get one of these things so I could walk around and share my music with other people as I walk down the street. So I went into debt. Don't film that. That's unwarranted. If you can afford one, if you must have one, pay cash. Pay cash for everything that you can afford. If you can't wait until you can pay cash. And that's how people used to live. I'll give you proof of that. Proof of that's how people used to live. You paying attention, and sorry back there? Proof of that people used to pay cash for everything. I'm going to give you dalil. You know what the source is, brother Ansari? The Temptations. What did they say? If you see something you want and you know you can't afford it, then the very best thing for you to do is start saving for it. That's right. That's the Temptations. Sahih Motown. He forgot. I don't know about that. If you see something you want and you know you can't afford it, the very best thing for you to do is start saving for it. That's the Joneses got a new car today. Keeping up with the Joneses, Ansari. Remember that? Keeping up, that's the song. Keeping up with the Joneses. Just put the Ahmeds in there. Muslims do it. Muslims like, we don't keep up with the Joneses. We keep up with the Ahmeds. So we just substitute the Ahmeds. Keeping up with the Ahmeds is going to make your life a mess. Bill collectors, tranquilizers are going to put you deeper in debt. You better leave the Ahmeds alone. The Ahmeds got a new car today. What you should say, hooray for the Ahmeds. Instead, you worry till your whole head turns gray. Let's pray for the Ahmeds because it's their car and they're the ones who have to pay, so leave the Ahmeds alone. Listen, Muslims, don't make believe we don't have those issues. Gambling's haram. A lot of people, financial trouble, gambling, haram. Credit is dangerous, so credit isn't haram. Interest-based credit is haram, but credit's not haram. But it's dangerous. I said they're all haram except one. Drugs are haram. How many people, money problems because one or the other is a drug addict? Drugs are haram. Alcohol is haram. Alcohol is expensive. It's expensive. That's why so many people get liquor stores, Muslims. That's what they tell me anyway. I talk to them. Now, why are you selling liquor? Brother, listen, you show me some way I can make money by, like I can make selling the alcohol. I give up the alcohol. Become a heroin dealer. If that's your logic, why are you messing around with alcohol? If you're going to sell haram things to people to make money, sell heroin to them. Make some real money. Right? If that's your calculus, why are you messing around with alcohol? You should be a crack dealer. Sell them coke and heroin. Make some real money with your haram behavior. They don't have a comeback for that one. Brother, tell me one thing I can do to make money like I make with the alcohol. I give it up. Crack and heroin. Alhamdulillah, one of our brothers on Market Street in Oakland gave up alcohol and now sells fresh produce. Some of you might have seen it in the paper at the market in 56th Street. Go patronize the brother. If not, just go in there and give him a hug. Sisters, have someone substitute for you. Tell him this from me, but my husband will give you the hug. No, because that's an accomplishment. We should encourage people who do the right thing, just as we discourage the wrong thing. Cigarettes, haram. Well, all my teachers said it was haram. Alhamdulillah, none of them smoked either. You get the fatwa, you know, the Philip Morris fatwa. Now, I was told Azhar issued a fatwa saying cigarettes were haram a couple years ago, and certain powers twisted their arms and they revoked the fatwa. Like someone got on the phone, Husni, what you doing? Don't you know Philip Morris contributed $2 million to my re-election campaign? Oh, sorry. Okay. Trying to please others before pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is haram. And a lot of money's wasted trying to please others. You mentioned keeping up with the Joneses, Ahmeds. Spending money, getting a new house because all the people in the community are getting new houses. Well, your old house is fine. So do something to please Allah, like staying out of debt. Allah bless you to get out from under one mortgage. Why are you going to put yourself into another one? You've been blessed. So Allah could, maybe Allah will forgive you for the first one. There were difficult circumstances. You're going to have a hard case to make for the second one. First one, my family grew, it expanded. The rental market, it was crazy. I couldn't find any place big enough for 5 kids. That's why I did the mortgage. Allah Ta'ala is merciful. What about the second mortgage? You already had the house. You had ample room. As a matter of fact, the kids were grown now and all moved out living on their own. You could have downsized to a 2-bedroom apartment. Instead, you upgraded to a mansion. Now you have a big empty house. You have to ride those 2-wheel things to get around the house. Subhanallah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The cure for money problems. So if we find those things weighing down on us, what are some cures? Get all of the above-mentioned things out of your life. That's the ultimate cure. If you have drugs in your life, get it out. Alcohol in your life, get it out. Unwarranted debt, get rid of it. Credit, get rid of it except what's absolutely essential. Interest, get rid of it. Pay everything by cash. You know how much money you will make and save if you just buy things with cash? So get those things out of one's life. Second thing, do your financial planning as a team. One has to plan for one's financial future. A lot of times we get into financial problems because we don't plan. We just live and go with the financial flow. And then we find out there's nothing to flow with because there was no planning. We have to plan. Umar radiallahu an, some say it's a hadith, but it's a athar, saying attributed to Umar. Husn tadbir nisful ma'isha. That good planning is half of your life. Husn tadbir nisful ma'isha. Good planning is half of your livelihood. So we have to plan. And we should sit down as a team. Husband, wife, sit down and plan. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, inshallah ta'ala. Try as much as possible to put your money into purchasing gold. So dollars are becoming increasingly worthless. So put money in precious metals. Some people say gold has lost its value. 2 years ago it was $600 for an ounce. Now it's $1,200 an ounce. Gold hasn't lost its value. The dollar's half of the value it was. So now it takes 1,200 of them to buy what you could buy with 600 2 years ago. Gold is stable. So think about purchasing gold as a hedge against the future. If you're in this area, this is for Silicon Valley people. Like companies, they won't give you your full worth in salary. They'll offer you their stock. If that stock is not worth anything, don't take it. Say, give me some money, preferably some gold. But I mean, about 6 years ago, there was a massive depression in this masjid. When that dot-com bubble burst and all that stock was worth nothing, you didn't want to be at MCA. It was doom and gloom around here. Alhamdulillah, no one jumped off the Bay Bridge or anything like that, or the Dumbarton Bridge. But there was some depression. What's wrong, brother? My stock is worthless. Alhamdulillah, most people recovered. Allah is merciful. But get value for whatever work that you do. And finally, trust in Allah. That's supposed to be a 5, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. We'll fix it. But trust in Allah, because understand at the end of the day, if we have peace of mind, that's the most valuable wealth we can have. Al-ghina, ghina nafs. That real wealth is the wealth of the soul and the wealth of the heart. So trust in Allah that Allah Ta'ala will suffice us. Trust in Allah that if we avoid the things that are haram, even though superficially it might seem that we're missing out on something of this world or we're impoverishing ourselves, in the long run we'll be richer spiritually and materially in the long run, I guarantee you. And Allah mentions in the Quran, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whoever puts their trust in Allah, Allah suffices them. So again, it's a question, do we believe that or don't we? If we believe it, we'll trust in Allah. And if we trust in Allah with the fullness of our heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will suffice us. Guarantee you. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. True or false? It's true. Allah said it. It's true. So then we'll have blessing in our Benjamins. So, inshallah, we'll all leave here happy and well fed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.